Ariel from Betta World for Bettas, founder and executive director. Thank you so much for being here and letting me interview you.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
I would love just to talk about the inception of Betta World for Bettas, how that came about.
Yeah, so Betta World for Bettas is a fish welfare nonprofit. We're based in the United States, and we advocate for betta fish, sometimes other aquatic animals like goldfish, other aquatic pets. But we are focused on raising awareness about the ways that betta fish are mistreated in the industry and kind of like holding companies accountable for harmful products and practices. And it came about because I've always been frustrated with how misunderstood they are. There's this persistent misconception that they love living in small bowls and jars. And so it was sort of born out of a frustration with that. It started as more of a personal, like, social media project where I was like making paintings and like creative videos to sort of communicate the message that they deserve better. And then over time connected with a lot of people who feel the same way, and I've found a community of people who want to see changes, and I feel there's a lot of energy um, among people who want to see betta fish welfare improve. And so connected with other people, and then we formalized into a nonprofit, and we're excited to continue working with people who care about fish.
Yeah, and it's not that recently that you started this, right?
Right.
So
As a nonprofit. Yeah.
it's amazing already the things that you've managed to achieve, all of the outreaches you've done, your social media. That just goes to show how much of a audience awareness there is finally for fish welfare. So you have focused on betters, and obviously they are being involved in the shop trade because of their, sadly, because of their beauty. They seem to be big favorites. But tell me about them in the wild, not in captivity, but like, in their natural environment. What are they like?
Yeah. So the bettas in our homes are domestic betta splendens. The majority are betta splendens. So they've been captive bred for a long time. So they're different kind of
Okay.
personalities than the Betta splendens in the wild. But there are some similarities. I mean, those are like uh, they're like cousins or ancestors, I suppose. And so they're native to Southeast Asia, places like Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. And in the wild, they can be found in like rivers, streams, marshes, rice paddies. And so it can
Hmm.
be like shallow, like maybe a couple feet of water, but it can also stretch for a wide territory. And so it's estimated that a male betta may have like up to 1 square meter of his own territory in the wild. That's an
Whoa.
estimation. It could be smaller than that. And there are other fish that live, among them in the wild, other fish species. There's a lot of vegetation, places to hide. And in Southeast Asia, they have a dry season. And so during the dry season, water levels will decrease. And it's possible that a betta fish might get trapped in a small puddle. This is an unfortunate situation, but their bodies have adapted so that they're able to endure sort of harsh, unpredictable conditions in the wild. So if they are trapped in a puddle or like even like the base of a plant, they have what's called a labyrinth organ. So they're able to take oxygen from the surface and they can endure it. They can also jump. So
What?
they're going to try to jump out of that small situation, right? It's an unfortunate situation to get stranded in
Sure.
a puddle. But, it's called the puddle myth associated with betta fish because there are a lot of people that have this misconception that they live in puddles in the wild. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, there's companies that capitalize off of that. So they capitalize off of the fact that they're so resilient and they're capable of enduring really harsh conditions, and they will market products that basically like make it seem like betta fish prefer and enjoy living in small spaces. So that's kind of the origin of why there's such a like really sticky misconception still surrounding their care, and why you so often will see them in vases and bowls, and people will justify it and say they live in puddles in the wild, which is um is not really the case.
More myths being made about fish, more myths that need to be busted. So in an ideal captive environment for the cousins that are more domesticated now, what would be like the optimum environment for them and enrichment and care?
So tank size is really important. No small bowls, no small tiny tanks. We always say at least 5 gallon, which is 19 liter, but even bigger. So that's for one single betta fish. Even bigger is better. So 10 gallon, 38 liter. In Germany, they have a law within your homes, it needs to be 14.6 gallon, which is 54 liters. So for betta fish in your homes, because the larger the water volume, the more stable the water conditions are going to be. So really, the bigger the better in terms of just keeping conditions safer and healthier for fish. They need a filter, so like a low flow kind of filter without a very strong current. They need a heater because they're tropical fish. So heaters will keep the water stable, the water temperature stable. If the temperature gets too low, that can be very stressful, and that's a problem with like these small bowls. Is that temperature can fluctuate quite a bit just with the ambient temperature of the room, and if the temperature gets too low, their immune system lowers. They can be more prone to disease, infection. So they need a heater. Enrichment is very important. So environmental enrichment, meaning things that they can interact with in the environment. Lots of plants, live plants are preferable. Places to hide. They like to go to the surface because they have to get air from the surface. So you can have like kind of floating plants and like a floating log, maybe things near the surface that they can rest on. They also, it's beneficial to add like what's called almond leaves or catappa leaves, which are they give like tannins to the water, and it can make the water a little bit darker. But that sort of mimics their natural environment in the wild, and that has like antibacterial, antifungal properties, and it can help to lower stress. So there's a
Oh
lot
my
of things to
gosh,
consider.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this to me sounds like a really complex individual just for
Oh, yeah.
one male betta, the things they need, the considerations. I remember seeing a episode of, because I love a bit of Kitchen Nightmares. I remember seeing an episode where Gordon Ramsay had put fish bowls, they're probably like that, and they were flat, and they had just a little, and they had one betta fish, one
Mhm.
Siamese fighting fish inside, and
Mhm.
this was just a little bit of pebbles, coloured pebbles, and that was it. No filter, nothing, no heater, and they were put up on the walls for decoration.
Mhm. Yes,
And you
I've
think that's legal?
Yeah, yeah. It's like I do like to give people the benefit of the doubt and say like, because there are so many pet stores that promote these tiny tanks, and it's still such a strong association that betta fish like thrive in these small spaces. People think that they're giving their betta fish what they need. Um, but it's very sad because when they're on the wall like that, it's definitely objectifying them and treating them like just decorative objects.
Yeah. No privacy, nothing. As well, they were bred to be aggressive, weren't they?
So they've been bred for like nearly 1,000 years, and initially they were bred for fighting. So it was like in Thailand, it was a form of entertainment to watch betta fish fight. It was a sport that people would bet on. So they would bet on which betta fish would come out, victorious, which would be more dominant and display its dominance. And sometimes they can fight to the death. So They were bred initially for their aggression. That was the preferred trait, and that's why domestic bettas, even though today they're bred more for beauty, but they still carry this very aggressive trait because they've been bred for centuries for that aggression.
How do you manage that in captivity? I mean, because a lot of solitary confinement, I read, a lot of that goes on. Do they get lonely if they don't have another better fish?
They are generally solitary fish, even in the wild. So in aquariums, I mean, aquariums are artificial environments, right? And that's their whole world. So to have tank mates, it can be done. It depends on the temperament of the betta fish, though. So that can be a really good form of enrichment, but they're not really going to be like making buddies with the other tank mates. It is a good form of enrichment to have just other fish swimming around, but it can be done successfully to just keep a single betta fish in a tank that's well enriched. They're definitely interactive with people, with their owners. I love that. You know, you walk by and they'll come swimming to the corner. But yes, they can have tank mates, and it can be done. You shouldn't keep two male bettas together, two or more, or male, female. It's just very risky. There's always going to be people who say that they've done it successfully. I would never advise that because you have to have a lot of experience, a lot of backup plans, and be so tuned into the betta fish behavior. And it's something I would never recommend to the average person to even try. Even keeping females together, female betta sororities is somewhat controversial because females are also fairly aggressive and they will establish hierarchies and, you know, dominance. And it can be stressful for these fish to be living in this constant state of like, oh no, she's coming, you know, like
I feel that. I mean, even for humans, you know, if
right.
you've got a really competitive group of women in a room, you're thinking, oh my gosh, you're on heightened alert. So for them, where they actually are going to physically fight each other for territory, and that would just be exhausting. Ideal tank mates, maybe a little snail or two.
Little snails can work. And yeah, I mean, it can be done with like tetras, even shrimp sometimes. Sometimes, though, the betta fish will eat the shrimp. Like Cory catfish, I've heard can work, coolie loaches. But you have to also keep in mind that anytime you're adding another fish, you're increasing the bio load, which means each living creature is going to produce more waste. And so you have to take that into consideration. And of course, each living creature has its own needs and requirements. So you have to find species that are going to be compatible with this tropical betta fish type environment.
God, it's a real science,
Yeah, it's a real
isn't it?
science. Yeah.
Let's just get fully into the science now. I would love to hear about the bio load and all the intricacies, water health, everything.
I think this is something people, you know, often will give their kid like a fish and say, okay, this is an easy pet. It's so low maintenance.
Oh, yeah.
I find fish keeping to be very complex and scientific because when you look at a tank, you see the water is clear, but what's happening inside is science. So there's molecules, there's bacteria. The molecules you really got to know are ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. So a fish will produce waste in a tank. Uneaten food will break down into ammonia. Waste breaks down into ammonia. Decaying plants will break down into ammonia. And ammonia is extremely toxic to any fish. It's extremely, extremely toxic. So the presence of ammonia should always be zero. Once ammonia is present, there will be bacteria that will eat the ammonia, convert it to nitrite, which is still harmful. It's a little bit less, but it's still harmful. And then more bacteria will eat the nitrite, convert it to nitrate, which is safe in manageable amounts. So you will do water changes to remove the nitrates. Live plants will remove the nitrates. But it's so important for people keeping fish to know that ammonia and nitrite should always be zero. And something that I think a very common mistake with beginners is that people will bring home their fish on the same day that they bring home their tank.
Hmm.
And this can be very, very even fatal for fish. It's called new tank syndrome. So, what you need to do when you're going to get a fish is you need to cycle the tank first, which means you get the tank, you don't get the fish. So you start by getting the tank, you set it up, add the gravel, add the filter, the water, that's the dechlorinated water, the heater. And then you introduce ammonia without the fish. So it's going to be like fish food or ammonium chloride. So you have to introduce a source of ammonia and then give it time for that bacteria to colonize and then convert it to nitrite. And then that bacteria colonizes, converts it to nitrate. And then you've got this cycle going. And so what happens when you add a fish to a brand new tank, just brand new tank that hasn't been cycled, is that the fish will come inside and it will produce waste, and then you have ammonia, but there's not been enough time for that good bacteria to establish. And so there's too much ammonia that it's just sitting in, and there's not enough time for it to be converted out quickly. So fish can experience like ammonia burns, gill damage, difficulty breathing, and it can be fatal for a lot of fish. And it's called new tank syndrome, and it's a very common mistake that people unfortunately make, because I think fish keeping is it's quite complex and it's quite involved.
Yeah, you have to colonize bacteria before
Yeah.
you even bring your fish home. That's
Mhm.
crazy. I
Yeah.
bet there are so many people listening to this now thinking, that's why my goldfish died. You need to start the cycle, because I guess you're just otherwise throwing it into a completely untested new environment. It's kind of similar to if you have a frog pond. So do you think that there are a lot of pet stores that aren't educating about this syndrome and these steps to take?
Yeah, sure. I don't think that it's really a priority for these. I mean, I would never blame the employees. These are just employees. Some of
Yeah,
them, they go above and beyond and they really care about fish. We can't really expect them to. They're expected to do so many different things. They care for other animals. They handle customer interactions. But it's on corporate leadership, right, to
for
say
sure.
this is a real priority that these customers need to know the tank size, the recommended tank size, that you can't just bring a fish home the same day. And that's not really happening. I mean, it happens at small scale pet stores. I do know employees at these big chains that will teach this to customers, but it's not like this is a set standard that's enforced, from the top down. So unfortunately, yeah, and I wish people did more research before they took home a pet. It's kind of unfortunate that people don't, but I also think, a lot of people do just trust whatever these pet stores sell and
Yeah.
say. And there's, some validity to that, because they think that these pet stores know what's best for the animals, and there's all this marketing that will do anything for pets, and we're all about health and wellness.
And they're
So
good marketing as well. Like I read, I think it was Pet Smarts. I don't know whether they responded to an allegation or what, but it was on their website. Animal welfare is our absolute top priority, and they list XYZ of all the things that they do. But actually, behind the scenes, there are so many reels on your social media where you've gone in and there's these poor betta fish in cups. Then that's legal.
it's legal. I'll show, if your audience is in the UK, it's, you may never have seen this, but this is how betta fish are sold in the United States. Also in Canada, this is the standard practice. So this is a PetSmart cup. This is a Petco cup. These are about zero point 0.4 liters. So obviously extremely, extremely small water volume. And these stores have maybe 30, maybe up to 70 fish at a time. So they're just on the shelves in these cups, and employees are expected to maybe change the water twice to three times a week, which is still not enough. But when you think of how like labor intensive it is when you have so many fish in these cups, and you're expected to do so many other things in the store, what happens is fish produce ammonia. this is too small of a water volume to even have a cycle. So it's never going to really cycle out. It's just going to be a concentration of ammonia, and fish will produce ammonia, which is so incredibly toxic, and they'll be sitting in it. And unfortunately, they die. I've never gone into a pet chain and not seen either a dead or a seriously sick fish.
God, that's
So
heartbreaking.
it is heartbreaking, and I mean, it's really, really unbelievable. You know, we look at like Pets at Home, which I know is not perfect in the UK, but they have these filtered larger
Thanks.
holding tanks, and it's
Yeah.
like, gosh, it can be done. It can be done, and there are so many other ways. And this is still the common practice, and it's been this way for my whole life. Like I remember being a kid and seeing this. There are, you know, a lot of people who have formed betta fish rescues, and they rescue betta fish primarily from these store conditions. And how crazy is that you have to rescue pets from pet stores?
Yeah, that's a broken system for you right there, because you have to buy the fish in the first place. So the profit still goes to this massive conglomerate company. They are laughing, but that poor animal is the one that's suffering. We spoke about so many things, the bio load, the complexities of the pebbles and what you want, and the filtration and the temperature. They are sitting in cups. And this is all, I mean, I must say, the UK, there's one clause, which is that you can't, when you're farming them, you can't subject them to avoidable pain. So there's kind of these grey areas, and then the Animal Welfare Act definitely needs updating. But fish sentience generally, I feel, is quite newly understood, which
Yeah,
is crazy considering all the beautiful complexities of betta fish that you've just described.
yeah.
Is any of this in the US at all? Any understanding?
Maybe among certain parts of the population, there's some understanding of fish sentience. In terms of legal protections, there's no legal protections for fish. The Animal Welfare Act in the United States, it excludes cold-blooded animals, so it excludes fish. Fish are not protected. There are some state laws which have very vague language where it's not easily like enforceable to protect fish. So, for example, in California, they have the Pet Store Animal Care Act, and it says all animals in pet stores, including fish, must have adequate space to perform normal body movement, you know, turn about freely in their enclosure. So, you know, how is this adequate space, right? It seems to be a like a blind spot, some sort of like a enforcement gap that people are just not taking fish welfare seriously because
No.
they can't. And there have been two studies just very recently, just in 2024, on betta fish behavior and the effects of tank size and enrichment, which is very
Okay.
interesting because, you know, it's just kind of starting now. Studies specifically on betta fish. One of them, called Life Beyond a Jar, uh, the researchers recommend a minimum of 5.6 liter, which is 1.5 gallon for just retail stores, because what they found, so 5.6 liter and enriched with plants. What they found is that betta fish in that size and greater showed less abnormal behavior. So that kind of directly counters this like California Pet Store Animal Care Act, where they're saying that bettas need to show, or they're saying that the animals need to show natural behavior. So now we have a study that is showing in very tiny spaces, they are performing abnormal behavior and they are displaying signs of stress. The other study, Life in a Fishbowl, that one showed that a fish had full expression of swimming behavior in enriched tanks that were 10 liter or greater, which is like 2.5 gallon or greater. So that's not even
Okay.
a large water volume, but it just goes to show that the betta fish, like there are studies now showing that betta fish behavior is affected by environment, and we really didn't even have that a couple years ago.
That's what we need.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of people, who do care about fish and already do see, like, maybe you don't need a study to say, like, yeah, fish are sentient. They their behavior changes in response to environment. But these studies are really important, to convince others and to convince retailers.
Get these protections, because sadly, it's not just the pet shops. It's getting them to the pet shops, which I don't want to be too morbid, but it is. It's not all morbid. Obviously, as you say, we've got the studies, your wonderful organisation doing so much, but we definitely need to raise awareness of the realities of how they get to pet stores. I did see something on Instagram about how they're fed in those little tiny, I mean, yeah, I would love to talk about that a bit more, the specifics.
Yeah. So the betta fish that we get in our chain stores, and many like smaller scale pet stores too, they are coming from abroad. They're coming from like betta fish farms where they're mass bred, places like Thailand, and they are at these facilities. They are in these very, very tiny bottles. There's rows and rows, and it's tens of thousands of rows of these betta fish in these bottles. And like you saw, it's a real operation. And so they have ways that they can feed them, change the water. But, they're, you can't see them as individuals at all when they're just lined up like that in rows. And then people can walk, on top of the bottles. And then what happens is when they're ready to ship, they get put into these small bags, like very, very small bags, with a very low water volume, and it has a tranquilizer in it. And they add a little bit of oxygen to the bag, and then they're put into a box with many, many other bettas, sometimes hundreds, and they are shipped abroad. And so in the United States, they go to, like, for most of the chain stores, they'll go to a distribution center next, and then they'll get put into like the cups, and then they'll get shipped to those individual store locations. So yeah, there are, we see what they look like in the pet stores, but we don't see these other stops that they go through, like as part of the supply chain. And really, unfortunately, their whole life can be that of like suffering and mistreatment. And that's why, we feel so strongly about advocating for them, because I'm always so heartbroken to think, when I go into these, like a Petco, and I see, unfortunately, a dead betta fish, I just think like, okay, what was this betta's life? I mean, it never got to experience any form of comfort. It was always treated as an object, unfortunately, as merchandise. It's very heartbreaking, and it is important for people to know that.
It's just so sad to think about going from a bottle to a bag to a cup, and then some of them from that point on may sadly die in the pet stores. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
And also, then unfortunately they can go into homes like you saw at Gordon Ramsay, right? They go onto the walls in small tanks, and then that's their life. That's their whole life that they have. I mean, this is a life. Maybe some people don't think it's valuable, but it matters to them. I mean, that's their life.
What kind of tank sizes are pet stores advertising? Because I'm sure they wouldn't have had the on the wall. Well, I don't know, maybe they would.
And that some of them would. I have a couple for example, like, so this, at least in the United States, I don't know if it's different in the UK. This is 1 gallon, which I think is 3.8 liter. But see, it says ideal for adults.
Oh,
This is what we're dealing with, where it's like simple setup to maintain, look great in any room. Really treating them like objects.
look great in any room. Like that's the main selling point.
Easy care, like gosh, and no stress, no mess, no stress maintenance solution.
That's why you want a fish. No stress, no mess. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, look at this. This is what it actually looks like. I mean, it just baffles me, that And again, I don't blame the people who purchase these because it says ideal for bettas and
I mean, that labeling.
yeah, exactly. You see that label and it's very confidently saying, like it's almost saying like your betta is going to love this. So people buy these and they think, okay, well, I'm doing something good for my betta. This must be what they want. Obviously, it's extremely tiny. It's the same concerns with ammonia that you have in these tiny, tiny tanks where ammonia builds up. And unfortunately, people, when they see this marketing about them being easy to care for, they end up doing less, like fewer water changes than needed because they think it's easy to like easy minimal maintenance kind of pet. I've noticed a change within the past couple of years, but unfortunately, at least in the United States, they're still promoting right next to the cups. Right next to the cups, they will have little tanks like that. So it's a cycle that keeps repeating. You see a betta in a cup like this and you think you can take it as like a party favor even, right? It's like you think, okay,
Yeah,
it doesn't even need a heater. It doesn't even need a filter.
it
Uh,
looks pretty.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How are they breeding these animals then? Are they catching them in the wild or?
No, so the domestic bettas, they're all captive bred. I mean, there are a couple of species that people do catch from the wild, but it's not as common and popular. The ones that you're getting from the pet stores, these are all captive bred, and the majority they are coming from these farms, these mass breeding facilities, where breeding is very beautiful when it's done naturally, right? But they
Yeah.
can be forced to breed because they want certain traits, certain colors and traits. And, even the breeding can have complications because these longer fin type bettas, the fins can be so heavy that, of course, they're beautiful. They're very stunning to look at, but the fins can be so heavy that it causes difficulty swimming. It is more prone to fin rot, infection, and they'll even bite at their fins because it's like, gosh, this is so heavy.
Oh my goodness.
There are people who breed more ethically. I mean, if you want to get a betta fish, we always suggest first try to adopt a fish, see if there's a betta fish that you can adopt. Sometimes you can have luck like looking on Craigslist. I've adopted from Craigslist before, like
Mm.
which is like I don't know if you have that in the UK. It's like a community ad
Yeah, I definitely will know of it. Yeah.
or we have a fish rescue map that we are expanding. We don't have any in the UK right now, but always open to suggestions. But our goal is to make it easier for people to find bettas that they can adopt rather than buy. But we also, if you really want a betta fish, we encourage people to support places with higher standards. There are
Mm.
breeders that breed betta fish, and some people, you have to determine where your line is and what's ethical. But some breeders do it in a much more ethical way than these mass breeding facilities, and there are far fewer steps and middlemen that the bettas have to go through. So that can be an option.
Say if someone wants to buy a better fish or they can't find one to adopt, is there a way that they could tell that they've been intensely bred, that they've gone through all this transportation?
Yeah, I mean the ones at the stores, they kind of all have been through that,
Mm.
but you can tell if a betta fish is healthier because it will be responsive to its surroundings. It will probably come swim near you or
Mm.
interact when you move your finger around. It'll be kind of like looking around. It
That's
will
cool.
have vibrant colors. They really lose their color when they're stressed, and they can go from like pale, like white to like vibrant red when they're out of unhealthy situations. A healthy betta will have flowing fins. They won't be clamped tight to their body. They'll be flowing. They'll be active and swimming. They will, and it's hard to see this in the cups, right? It's hard to see
Mm.
all of this, but they will have an appetite too. They'll have a good appetite. Unfortunately, this mass breeding has caused a lot of issues, even for healthy-ish looking bettas, because stress can have short-term and long-term implications. Like I said before, it lowers your immune system. like the betta's immune systems are lowered, and so they can be more prone to infection down the line and other complications. So it's hard to really say, if you're going to be getting a fully healthy fish. It's hard to say.
It's interesting because it kind of reminds me of inbreeding dogs and cats, lots of species to be fair, that they are bred for a certain characteristic, but then in that they're inbred, and then you get a smaller gene pool, and then you get all of these inherited diseases. And now we're actually in a state where we're having to sort of undo all the inbreeding that's been done, you know, bulldogs, things like that. And the fact that it's happening to fish too is a really important thing to be aware of, because I think it plays it's representative of how intelligent they are, how complex they are. You can't just keep breeding, because they're going to have all of these health conditions. And the thing about you said about their fins is just it's like mutilation, basically.
Yeah, for aesthetics and kind of for human enjoyment, right?
So the topic of human enjoyment, it goes on, doesn't it? Because we've got not only fish in cups, but we also have them at carnivals and circuses. How is this still going? Is it still going?
Oh yeah, it's still going. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it like at least 4 times in the past couple years. I've been going to the different carnivals. And how is it still going? I mean, I think it's one of those things that people just haven't really given a second thought to. It's been like just a tradition, and some people are nostalgic about it and they feel very protective of their traditions. But it is actually illegal to give away live animals, including fish, in certain states in the
Okay.
United States: Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, I think. And in Berkeley, California, city in California, it's illegal to give out fish as prizes. I have seen it happen though in all of the surrounding cities. And I have had success actually where all I do is I take a photo of it happening and I contact the event organizers, and they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do that. And they do shut it down. So I think we are kind of at this new point in time where people are sort of ready to let that go. Still, it's still a long way to go though. I mean, there's so many problems with that. It's not usually betta fish. It can be, but it's oftentimes goldfish. And goldfish have very, very specialized needs, and they need so much more than these little bowls that they're given out in. In Switzerland, it's illegal to have only one goldfish. So you have to have at least 2, because they're social creatures. And these carnivals, they'll give out one goldfish usually in a small bowl, and people are attending the carnival to have fun and be with their family and friends and go on rides. So they'll be walking around with their goldfish in the heat, and it'll be sitting in the heat for several hours, which is just going to be so incredibly stressful. Goldfish produce a ton of ammonia. I mean, they produce so much ammonia. So what happens, these fish usually just die within a matter of like days or weeks. It's so incredibly stressful. And also goldfish, they need a lot of space, more space than betta fish. Maybe a 40-gallon minimum. Like I think that's 150 liters minimum.
Whoa.
So you've got to go really even bigger than that, as big as you can get, because their bodies also grow to the size of the tank that they're in. Oh, and another thing is that goldfish can live up to 15 years. So those fish that you are getting at the fairs, and you say, oh, well, it was going to die anyway. No, I mean, they can live up to 15 years, 7 to 15 years. So it's a real investment, and you're not invested when you're going to a carnival to play games. It's really quite silly that this happens.
Chances that you've got bacteria colonizing colonizing at home when you pick up a free fish at the fair is pretty slim, I would say.
Exactly.
Chances you're even going to have an appropriate tank. I think if they were are benevolent enough to give away the fish with this beautiful, properly sized, over 150-litre tank, and with the filtration and another fish,
Mhm.
then maybe, but
Right.
even then the water would have to be ready and already cycled. So, but it just takes someone like you going and being like, this isn't right, calling, taking that bit of action to break the society's acceptance of it and to say, no,
Mhm.
we're better than this. Things have changed. This is a sentient being. I think so much of the animal welfare issues that are integrated, like traditional everything integrated into our society, come from, it's just past years, and we just, as you say, we just sort of end up, oh, we're still doing that goldfish at the carnival thing? Oh, okay. So I'm so glad to hear that if you call and you say this is happening, it's not acceptable, this is a sentient being, that they actually take action. And do you think if someone did that, if they saw a goldfish at a fair or a carnival, do you think that that's quite a good way to raise awareness and stop the issue?
I think it's definitely effective. I mean, we always kind of pressure, so we'll post on social media, we'll call out the fair, make it sort of an image problem. And most of these carnivals and fairs, they don't really want that. They don't want to be known for engaging in this kind of harmful, outdated practice. So that can be effective. Contacting the event organizers, also just informing people that of the harms of it and informing them that there is precedent, at least in the United States. We have like a little flyer that we give people. It's focused on the United States, but it outlines the states that have already passed laws to prohibit giving out animals as prizes. So people just kind of realizing, oh, well, there's already been movement happening. It's actually illegal and it's illegal for a reason, can give some people pause and kind of think twice. Petitions can sometimes help, especially if it's a petition that's in your community and representative of your community. An open letter could be another option. You can see if your local like humane center or organization would be willing to sign an open letter or privately connect with that fair, the fair organizers. But being vocal, I think, being vocal is really important. Just saying, hey, this is not okay and this is happening, and documenting it.
Bringing awareness to it. Would that apply the same with pet shops? If you saw an issue, would the same thing apply? Like, you could start a petition. Should someone maybe report it to you if they see bad conditions or good conditions?
Mhm. Yeah, we have people who will report bad and good conditions. Good conditions meaning usually not from these chain pet stores that use the cups, but they'll say, like, look at my local fish store that has this really incredible betta fish display, and we like to showcase that there are other ways it can be done. And it's not just, our organization. There are a lot of individuals who document abuse and neglect in these cups, and they're very vocal about it, and they have been for a long time. So I think it's always helpful. I think the pressure is building and it's going to continue to build. But always documenting it and showing that it's happening is important. We have to just keep speaking out against it.
Don't turn a blind eye. It's the same for all the animal welfare issues that are going on in the world. The cycle only perpetuates when people turn a blind eye and just say it's not my problem. But that's why doing this podcast is so important for me personally, in a way, because I feel sometimes you're just banging your head against a brick wall. You just see all this abuse going on, all these people not knowing. It's not necessarily being cruel actively, it's just ignorance, lack of education, lack of awareness. So when I talk to people like yourself, I'm just so hopeful
Mhm.
because you're actually speaking for these animals, these beautiful beings, and making a change. And the most rewarding thing is when that ball starts to roll. And as you say, those little tiny laws that are coming in now, the pressure you're putting on, the success you get from that. Oh, that's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to change these animals' lives. And also thank you for doing this podcast and sharing this wealth of knowledge. I mean, I don't know how you keep all the gallons and all the specifics in your head. That's crazy. Someone wanting to get involved with you, wanting to help you, donations, ongoing projects. Is there anything anyone should know?
Yeah, you can go on our website. It's bettaworldforbettas.org. We have a donation link. We have one of our board members runs a fish rescue. So a lot of the donations go towards supporting her fish rescuing efforts, as well as we're working on a campaign right now to address the betta fish cups. And I'd love to keep you updated on that. Um,
Absolutely.
and on our website also, we have all of our contact information. And, like I said, we're based in the United States, but this is Betta World for Bettas. So, like anyone around the world that wants to connect and maybe share what it's like in your country, share some perspectives, we would love to have that and love to collaborate. And I'm so grateful to be here. And I think you're doing such an important thing.
Oh,
Because animal advocates and lovers need to find community, and that's so important. It's really it's really special to have a platform to be able to talk about fish welfare because sometimes that, gets overlooked even in animal advocacy. And so I'm so grateful for the opportunity.